The second principle of influencing people is commitment. The idea behind this principle is a psychological finding that people who have already agreed or committed to do something, orally or in writing, will more likely to stick with their decision and fulfill their commitment in future. In 1987, an experiment was conducted where voters were asked one day before the election whether they were going to vote the next day. On the election day, 87% of those asked and who committed to going did go to the polls compared to 61% of those who were not asked. That means that people who publicly committed to voting were more likely to actually vote. So, how can we use this principle to persuade other people? Well, one very simple example. When you invite one of your friends or colleagues to an event which is important to you, instead of saying, "Please come to my party," or "I would be very glad if you could come," ask them, "Will you please come to my party?" and get them say yes, and you will see that they will be more likely to keep their promise. Now, if we come to marketing, if you want to close a deal or sell your product, get your customer take just a small first step towards it. For example, if you sell a car or a house, get your client pay a small deposit for reserving it, even if it's only just 0.001% of the total amount. If you are selling something online, get them fill in the form or leave their email address or better their credit card details. Thus, they will make a small commitment which will most likely lead to a greater commitment later on or to better conversion rates. Commitment principle also works with people's self-image. They are more committed to doing things which are consistent with their values, attitudes, and actions. I believe most of you have encountered how this principle works when communicating with women. They instinctively use it when they need some help from men. Before asking their men for help, they prefer to tell them how strong and always helpful they are. In such a situation, there is not a single chance that any man will resist. So, in conclusion, commitment principle is based on the notion that people who committed verbally, in writing, or with their actions to doing something will more likely to do it. So, if you want to convince someone, get them first say yes and ask them for some action. One small action will pave the way for future bigger actions. Another thing is that you should understand what a person thinks about his self-image and align what you want him to do with their self-image, so that if he refuses, it will mean that he's not consistent with his values, which he will always try to avoid. So that's it about commitment, and in the next episode we are going to talk about another principle of persuasion, which is a social proof.